sights to show you.
Hell yeah.
Welcome to the Horror Syndicate Discourse. It is Sunday night. A little bit late tonight. Sorry about that. I want to apologize to each and every one of you who show up and watch to see my beautiful face right at the beginning of the show. Because, you know, it's me. Ooh. Just had a little bit of a earthquake. No, that was me kicking the desk. Anyway, tonight we're going to be talking about the 50-year-old movie, the Wicker Man. I was going to play a joke and say, oh, we're talking about the Wicker Man with Nicolas Cage. You know, the bees and all that stuff, but we're not ever probably going to talk about that. I've never seen his Wicker Man, and I really honestly don't plan on seeing it. I've heard nothing but bad things. As of right now, it has like a 1.9 average star rating on our, because I did it today, and, you know, on the 5-star rating. So not doing too well, about a 38%. Yeah, it feels like you should have seen that before, being British and old. I can't do it. The accent. I should stop. Bring in the guys. We got Nathan Thomas Milliner, who is a fan of this, and he tells us Midsummer is not the Wicker Man. Nate, how are you tonight?
I'm tired as usual, but yeah, I'm here to talk about a great movie.
Yes. Also with us is Ellis Seth T. Miller. Seth, how are you? Did you get a chance to watch The Wicker Man?
Yeah, I watched it today for the first time.
Okay, I'm excited to find out what you think. I watched it today in parts and nothing against the movie. I was up really late last night with a friend, and I kept falling asleep. And I fell asleep right before the song we love, you know. And so I had to go back and rewind it and watch that. Yeah. And then, of course, I fell asleep right before Ingrid Pitt was naked in the bathtub. I'm like, what is the best parts of the movie? No, I like boobs. I can't help it. I'm not gonna lie. So we're gonna talk about a couple things. Nate has you're Irish. Damn, sorry, man. I thought you were whatever. But Nate's got his. You got to see this is probably what we'll start with, and then he's also has a scene from The Wicker Man that he wanted to kind of dissect a little bit. And Seth, is it too early to ask for you to explain this movie, or is it?
No? Yeah, it is.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So why don't we go ahead and start with Nate's You Got to See This with the movie he chose, which is available on Shudder streaming. And here we go, Nate. You ready?
V.
It is V. Okay.
Yeah, it's V. That's how you say it. A lot of people know about this movie. I didn't know about this. I've been listening to Joe Dante's podcast, The Movies That Made Me, and where they bring people on, usually filmmakers, to talk about not their movies, but the movies that they love. Sometimes they'll have a topic like Westerns or movies from a particular year or just movies they love. And William Stout, the artist, was on. And if you don't know William, he did a lot of art direction. He's kind of responsible for designing Tar Man for Return of the Living Dead. He did a lot of the preliminary drawings for that. Great artist. But he was talking about some of his favorite movies. And he mentioned this one. He had seen it, and I had never heard of it. I've been writing down. I am just never going to catch up because I write down everything I hear recommended, and I go on these lists, and so I've got multiple lists. And I keep fucking making longer lists. I'm like, I'm never going to get to these, but this one jumped out at me when he talked about it. I thought this looks really cool, and it was free. Like I think it's on Tubi as well, maybe.
So it's funny because right after you sent that to me, I got on Shudder to watch something, and there it was. I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people have been saying it's on Shudder, and that's how they saw it. They just gave it a shot. And
I plan on watching it.
So. Most people I know that said they watched it felt like Roman, who was on our show. He said he had to buy it because it was just so pretty and so beautiful. And I actually did. I bought it. So I just got it in the middle of the day. I had to have a copy of it. It's a 1967 Russian film. Actually, the very first horror film of the Soviet era of Russia, like the USSR era. and it's based on a novella from 1835 written by Nikolai Gogol. And it's about a vampire called V. That's what V is. And it was actually it's been adapted 4 times as film, and one of those adaptations is Mario Bava's Black Sunday. The movie is also known as Spirit of Evil. It was directed by Konstantin Yorkov and Georgi Kropotkin. I don't know how to say it. So anyway, it's the best I can explain this. First of all, visually, it's stunning. Like, there's a lot of like special effects. It's scary, but not scary.
Well, the set design looks great.
Oh, this set here is beautiful. It's a church.
Yeah.
The colors, the set, the cinematography is just every fucking shot in this movie is beautiful. I just had so much fun watching it, just looking at it. So this guy here, his name is Coma, and he's a seminary student. And they're let out of school. There's like 3 of them, and they go out and they get drunk.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're stumbling back home, and they get lost. They come across like a farm, and they are taken in by this old hag, this old witch. And we saw him floating with her a minute ago. But he's drunk, and she tries to seduce him. And as you would. And of course he rejects her. She's this old hag. And but she like hops on his back and is like riding him, and like they're running like they're as it, and before he knows it, they're flying. So they're in the air. And he begs her to land, and when she lands, he picks up a stick and beats her in his drunken state in fear, and he thinks he kills her, and he looks back down, and it's this young, beautiful girl. And her
girl.
And so he gets called upon. He runs away. He gets called upon to go to the farm where he was hiding out, and the farmer that lives there said that his young daughter has died, and she requested him by name to sit for vigil for her. So it's a religious ceremony where someone sits with the body for 3 nights to guard it from the evil spirits before burial. So he has to go to this church for 3 different nights to guard the body. And she comes to life. She wakes up and tries to get to him. And it's, I won't go anymore. It is just, as you see, it reminded me of like Baba. Baba adapted it. It reminded me of Roger Corman's Poe movies in look and everything. It reminded me of kind of even William Castle a little bit stuff. It reminded
got a little Hammer feel too.
Hammer. It reminded me of a little bit of Evil Dead with the quirkiness.
Is that where he beat her and then?
He sees it's a young, beautiful girl. Yeah. So I won't go into any more of it, but everyone I've talked to who's seen it is just like, this movie's beautiful. It's great. And it's only like 75 minutes long. So you're not going to be like trapped down to it. But it's a blast. And again, it's just gorgeous. I mean, I could sit here and watch this every day. It's just because it's how pretty it is. And I was stunned. I think I watched it Thursday night. I just got my copy in today. No, I watched it Friday night, I guess. And I already got
was
my
it
copy.
A regular DVD or was it?
It's a Blu-ray. I think Severin maybe released it.
Oh, okay.
And it's got
They take good care of their stuff.
Yeah, it was good. I didn't get to watch a whole lot of the Blu-ray, but I did watch the first special feature is Richard Stanley talking about the legend, because this is like a vampire legend. Richard was the one that made Hardware and Dust Devil. Was the one making that Dr. Moreau movie before. I think Frankenheimer took his job basically because he didn't get along with Val Kilmer. And
who did get along with Val Kilmer?
Have you ever watched that documentary about that movie, the making of that movie?
I watched the Val Kilmer documentary, and it sounded like nobody got along with him on set. So
there's a documentary all about the making of that Dr. Moreau movie. And it's pretty good, pretty interesting. So that's another one you could watch if you haven't watched that one. I can't remember what the title of it is. I think it's like Lost something. If anyone knows, comment. But V is one I just said, hey, I wasn't planning on recommending the movie this week, but after seeing that like Friday night, I was like, if people haven't seen this and it's on Shudder and it's on Tubi, it's just a really fun movie. Oh, it's actually one that you could probably watch with your whole family, because it's quirky horror, but it's also creepy, but even almost in a Disney way, like when Disney would do horror.
Really?
Yeah, there's something about it that's very classical, because it's based kind of like old folklore. It's what it is. It's old Russian folklore.
I put it in my my queue for Shudder, so I plan on watching this one. By the way, that documentary is called Lost Soul: The Doomed Journey of Richard Stanley's Island of Dr. Moreau, and it's available on Pluto, Tubi, Redbox, and Prime streaming, or Freevee or Plex, whatever. It's on those. So
it's a really good one. The one thing I remember the most from a documentary is when John Frankenheimer took over. He hated Val Kilmer, and I think on the very
diva, like a big time.
He was very, very diva, and I think it was on the last day of Val Kilmer's shooting. I think, from what I remember, I could be wrong, Frankenheimer said cut, and he turned and said, "Get that son of a bitch off my set."
Oh my god.
So I'm done with him. Get him off my set. No, like, hey, Val Kilmer's last day, guys.
Yeah, like
we appreciate you.
Yeah.
He's like, get that motherfucker out of here.
Be gone.
He's not my wingman. Let him go play Batman.
Yeah, that was the next thing, I believe, right? It was Batman. All right. So, anything else you want to say about V before we move? So, it is on Shudder. Definitely check it out. It sounds interesting. I don't think I've ever delved into a Russian. It is on Tubi as well. A Russian film ever. So
a lot of great Russian films, especially silent era in the 30s, and of course one of the greatest filmmakers ever, Andrei Tarkovsky, is amazing. His movie Stalker and Solaris and Andrei Rublev, Mirror. Tarkovsky's probably, that guy's amazing. But this was really. I'm gonna have to look up these filmmakers. I don't know if they made anything else like this. It was two guys that directed it, but I was just entranced by this one. I was like, I wanted my wife and my daughter to watch it today, and they're like, it's hard to get people to watch foreign films.
Yeah,
but it's just so fun.
So this is based off of a novel or a story by Nikolai Gogol. But there's a remake, a 2014 3D remake I'm seeing here.
Yeah.
It's also known as Forbidden Empire or Forbidden Kingdom. So I don't know if that would be any good or not. I just noticed that was there.
I heard it was good, the remake. I'll have to check it out. But this, like, part of the charm of this is its era.
Mm-hmm.
And the
there's something, you're right, there's something about the like 1957 to about 1973, before Exorcist, before Texas Chainsaw, that there's something about that era that is very charming in a lot of
film look and the coloring,
the
art direction, the performances.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it has this innocence to it and this very homemade, there's a lot of the special effects. You could tell that, there's rear projection, or the
harkens the days of the 1930s and 40s. Really,
yeah. It's really cool. And then like the finale is just batshit wild. All this stuff starts to happen. I don't want to give away.
Is it dubbed or is it subtitled?
The one I've seen is subtitled.
Okay.
I don't know if they've ever dubbed it. And I did play some of the scenes for my wife because I said, you just got to watch this. And it was subtitled. But I mean, there may be a dubbed version. But I don't usually watch dubbed versions. So.
Yeah, subtitle probably. The only thing that's fun watching dubbed is Italian movies because, you know.
Yeah.
You know,
the Aussies.
Yeah. So check out V. It's on Shudder. It's on Tubi. And check out that Dr. Moreau documentary, which is in a bunch of places. And we'll go ahead and get back to the topic at hand. And the first thing I want to do, first of all, I always mention this because Christopher Lee is one of my favorite actors of all time. And the first time I saw this, it didn't quite catch me. It took 2 or 3 times for me to watch it before it kind of really started. It's like there's so much singing in this movie, and it's very sexual, you know. And like I just didn't get it. But I think I've seen it a handful of times, 4 or 5 times now, and I think I've got a decent grasp on it. And I like a lot of what this movie is. But first, before anything, I got to know, Seth, what did you think of The Wicker Man? This is your first viewing. It took you 50 years. What'd you think?
I actually enjoyed it. I think
good.
I think I was kind of engaged in the mystery, and you know, of the cop, I don't know his name, trying to locate the girl, and everybody sort of being evasive and lying to him. You know, I love that line. You're all a bunch of liars, a bunch of despicable liars.
Yeah.
And then I think this movie has a really great twist ending. I love the way that it kind of unfolded, you know. But yeah, I thought it was a really good movie. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, the end. You think that like getting towards the end, he disguises himself and he's watching the ceremony, and then it was all set up. You know, you're like, oh my god. You're like from the beginning. You know, from the very beginning. You're like, upon rewatching it after the second time when I started to enjoy it, like there's the beginning of the movie when he lands. First of all, I like the way it starts, where it shows his devout faith, and you see that play out throughout the movie, where it's the complete opposite with these pagan rituals, and he mentions the crumbled, you know, churches and no pastors or whatever they're called, you know, and I like that he has no taste for it. Like when he finds out that that Rowan's grave, he makes his own cross and puts it on the gravestone or whatever it is. And
I read an interview that Edward Woodward, who played Howie, went back to that location. I don't know how much longer afterwards, and the cross was still there.
Really?
I was shocked. Like no one took that at all. Like that's wild.
Yeah, and that's I was going to lead into the next thing is that the whole location, all the locations in that place. I mean, it reminded me of like society's cut off from reality, you know, because they're in their own little bubble on that island with their own religion, which, you know, it's so bizarre. And I think that's why it took me the first time I watched. I was like, first of all, this is not a horror movie. This is ridiculous. But like the more I watched it and the more even today watching it, you know, you find new things, like the way they shot Christopher Lee in his very first scene under the tree, almost like in Cyrano. You know, he was offering the boy to her, to what's her name, Britt Eklund's character Willow. You know, and he's like, you're not, because you never know what to make of him until the end of the movie.
So you must have seen the uncut version.
I did.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, I need to get it.
God. The final cut's on Blu-ray.
I need to order that one because I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I watched that one, and I've seen.
But that scene's not in it.
There are 3 cuts of the movie. Oh, you definitely got to see it. But the way it's shot, like Christopher Lee's under this tree, and she's looking out the window. Looking, that's why it's like Cyrano, you know, because Cyrano is like anyway. So Christopher Lee, you see like this part of his face. That's it, you know, and he goes into this whole thing about sacrifice. He calls the guy a sacrifice, you know, and so Howie's watching this whole thing unfold, and he's already thinking like, what the fuck is going on here, you know? and then of course later on he can hear the boy and her doing it. So yeah, oh yeah, it's called the final cut. There are 3 cuts of this movie. So which one did you guys watch?
Just the theatrical that they released.
There's also the director's cut, which is actually the longest cut of the 3. Which I haven't seen that one, I don't think, because I have one cut that was like a digital file given to me, and then I have my Blu-ray, which is the final cut.
Which one you got? Which one you got there, Seth?
Yeah, which one do you have?
I just got this DVD, so it's
Okay.
probably
I think that's one I
theatrical.
have.
Okay,
88
so I'm not
minutes.
sure
Got
what
like
the big
the
difference
Anchor
is.
Bay version.
That I did not know that wasn't in the cut.
Yeah.
That's an interesting.
Yeah,
story.
that's an extra. Yeah, because there was when the movie was done, the distributors didn't think it was any good, and they didn't know how to sell it, and they did a shitty job with it. Apparently, Roger Corman was going to distribute it in the States, and he was someone who really, really respected it, and he was doing a lot of movies like this at that time, like putting those out, and for some reason Roger didn't get it, and I went to these other distributors, and they just didn't like it, didn't think it would do nothing, so they didn't really do that. So the movie wasn't that successful. They actually like dropped the ball. They released this movie with another movie at that time that they didn't really have faith in and didn't give enough like proper distribution, and that was Don't Look Now, which is also seen as a masterpiece of the 70s. So these people didn't know what they had, and really Wicker Man became more popular after time when people actually got to see it. But they cut a lot of that stuff out because they thought it was just too boring, or audiences wouldn't like it, and there's a lot of talking.
It adds a lot to it because you don't see Christopher Lee's character until a good 30 minutes in.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah,
and then there's like a scene. I don't know if it's in that cut where he's talking to Howie about apples.
Yeah, it's in there.
That's cut out because they thought, God, this is taking forever. Let's cut this out. And
the weird thing is, it's only like 3 or 4 more minutes of film that's added into it. That, like, I feel like it's actually almost needed for the story.
Apparently, there was more footage, and the negatives and everything have disappeared. No one knows where the negatives or any of that stuff is. And Christopher Lee suspects someone's got it and hiding it. But the legend is that it was like tossed and buried in the highway that they like poured in the concrete. Like, why would someone do that? Like, it's like he goes, I don't believe that. I think somebody has it somewhere. But yeah, Christopher Lee, this was his favorite movie that he's ever done. His favorite role. He actually did this movie for free, as did a lot of the casts, because the movie would not have gotten made because they didn't have the money. They wouldn't have had the money to have all those names and everything they had to have for the movie.
Actually, her and Christopher Lee are both synonymous with Hammer Films. And I know Christopher Lee was really trying to he had just done Satanic Rites of Dracula, I think, and he was just so done with that. And he'd been, working through Hammer. The Devil Rides Out, I think, had just come out as well. And he's just trying to get out of that. And this is completely different because he was more heroic in that movie, and Devil Rides Out. This was such a different movie for him.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a final cut, which is the one I have, a director's cut, which is 99 minutes, and the final cut's 92, and then the theatrical, which you guys must have seen, was 87 minutes. So
right, I'm gonna order that final cut.
It was only like $12 on Blu-ray. I had to grab it, But yeah, I really, I get this movie, and God damn, that ending, it goes on. It's a good third of the movie, I'd say. But like the entire ceremony, and then when they find out, I mean, it's 50 years old. We could talk freely about this, I think. You know?
I mean, I kind of knew. I mean, we after years, where it's going, but not the way it's going to get there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I think we're safe in the spoiler. If they're watching this, I think they've seen it.
Wait, here. Now we're safe.
I wouldn't watch a long podcast on a movie if I had seen it. So.
Right. And if you have never seen it, it's definitely worth the watch, and give it more than a one-time viewing, and it's definitely not the Midsummer. Like every time I've watched it since, I look for similarities, and I honestly I can only find maybe a little bit, if that. So what do you got, Seth?
I was gonna say the same thing. I'm watching the movie and I'm like, this. I don't understand that complaint at all,
No.
because like I could see where like this movie inspired Ari for Midsummer, but
Mhm.
there's very little in common. It just deals with like this like weird religious cult, but like everything else is completely different. I mean, there's
Yeah.
It's all different.
you know the sacrifice thing and all the weird stuff in there, but like it's like one of those movies that inspired Midsummer, but that's pretty much it, at least as far as I was concerned.
I mean, at the heart of The Wicker Man, it's a great detective story in a way with a fucking insanely great twist. You know,
Yeah.
where Midsummer is not a detective story at all.
Well, so much about The Wicker Man is about the combativeness between the two religions. I mean, it's what so much of the
He's
movie
right.
can't beat the smoking hot. Yeah. But this movie, yeah, The Wicker Man is about a police officer who is extremely religious, who comes to a pagan island and is appalled by what he sees of the religion, and there's this fight between who's right and who's wrong, blah blah blah. And, I mean, there's a lot to go into this, but it's a murder mystery. He's a cop trying to solve a missing person or murder case the whole movie.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then it's like Midsummer is not that at all. Like
No.
Midsummer is about first of all, people who aren't like they're totally cool with it. They're there to get laid and do drugs and hang out.
College
Like
students working
they're
on
not
their thesis or whatever, right?
they're
Like,
not they're not repressed. They're there to get down too and
Mhm.
have fun. And she's mourning, of course, but she's trying to forget her mental illness and her pain and her mourning. And like she's our central character. And like the characters, the plot, not all. I mean, all it has in common again is the paganism and the sacrifice, which is kind of goes 2 and 2 with that. Like, how do you
Yeah.
make a movie about? How do you make a horror movie about pagans and ritual, and not have that? We've seen sacrifice, so that's where I get like this. Like Midsummer got so persecuted for that. I'm like, but how can you be a fan of Friday the 13th? And then shit on Midsummer for just being like, isn't Friday the 13th obviously Halloween? Like in so many ways and so many beats. So
No, it's not
a
the
camp.
same.
But like I'm saying, like there's so many movies that we watch that are so derivative
Mhm.
of other movies. Just like I get Battle Royale and Hunger Games, and Hunger
Wait a
Games is
second.
like Battle Royale, but
I
Hunger
wanna go
Games is
back-
its own thing too.
I want to go back to Friday the 13th. Sean Cunningham flat out said he made that movie to make money off of the back of Halloween. Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but are people going to? No one ever complains about Friday the 13th being a ripoff.
No.
They just love it.
Mhm.
So like, but Midsummer is so different from Wicker Man. It's ridiculous. It's so funny.
Well, and you gotta remember that the people who are saying this, 90%
Just
of them
don't
probably
want to
haven't-
like it.
They probably haven't even seen either one of the movies. You know, they may have seen some of the iconography from the Wicker Man. You know, with the May Queen or the May Queen, but the festival, and then of course they're doing kind of the same thing there. You know, but it's not even the same thing. It's not even the same ritual. I mean, some of the things may be similar, but
Yeah.
it's not. That's ridiculous. And both are really great movies that people should watch. Honestly,
But there's that either or mentality that a lot of people have. But you can't. You have to like one, or you can't like both, or that's
Right.
just this or that, and it's just horse shit.
it's like Star Wars and Star Trek. You gotta like one or the other.
Yeah, you
I
can like
like
both.
Yes.
I like one over the other, but I don't hate one over the other. You know.
No, they're different. They're so totally different. They just take place in space and have star in the title.
Yeah, they really have nothing in common.
No, almost nothing at all.
I mean, Star Trek is pure sci-fi, whereas Star
It's
Wars
about
is
space
fantasy.
exploration. You know, that's what Star Trek's
Yeah.
about. At its core. It's what it's about.
Star Wars is a hero's journey story,
Mhm.
so it's just
Yeah, And yeah, so the Wicker Man. Do you want to do your scene? I want to get more into the story a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because it's really intriguing. A lot of the stuff, because I mean, Sergeant Howie's the guy you follow around the entire movie. Like I went in thinking Christopher Lee was the star, and he's not at all.
Yeah.
I mean, and you get these. Every person he meets is so fucking bizarre. He walks. First of all, he walks into the pub or the you know the
The Green Man
yeah,
in.
the Green Man. He walks in and they're all jovial and singing and dancing, and he just has no time for this. You know, it,
It always gives me a little American Wolf in London vibes too.
can see that. Yeah, maybe they got that from this, huh?
Possible.
Yeah, the slaughtered lamb. But in the way a lot of these characters are shot as they're singing and dancing and all this different stuff, it's just like the complete opposite of what he's such a straight laced character. You know,
Well, what's really interesting about this film, in terms of that, is that we assume that Howie is the protagonist or the good guy.
right.
But is he the good guy? Because these people just have their own beliefs and their religion that they've grown up with,
Mm.
as he does. But he comes in there as an authority figure, as a guy who thinks I'm on the right side of the law, and not just the law of the land, but the law of
Catholicism.
God,
Yeah.
in Catholicism and God, Jesus. And I'm right. This is the right one. My God's the right one, just like a lot of people are. And they're like, that's just not how we are here, dude. That's not how. That's what you believe. This is what we believe. So, and what they like Christopher Lee says, we don't murder here. He's not bothered by this police because he feels he hasn't done anything wrong. This is how we do it, and we don't look at it as murder. We're not murdering you. We're offering you to, you're going to become something else. You're transforming. You're not dying. You're regenerated. You become the crops, and it's like that. They have their own religion, and that's a lot of what goes on in the world today, and it always has. But we see it now, where so much of our lives are trying to be controlled by people who are trying to mix their faith into our rules and our laws and our government.
No, it's been going on for decades.
Yeah, and that's what Howie's doing. Is he's an asshole to a lot of these. Like, when he comes in the bar again, he's like knocking people around after he saw the people fucking in the yard and all that. Mm-hmm. He's like, get up! He's like, what are you doing? He's treating them like, he's so repressed, and he's pissed off that they're not, and they're just having a good old time, and you could tell when the movie came out, this is right after the whole hippie thing, where free love and all this shit, and the old prudish repressed ways of that's heathenism, that's paganism. There's so much cool stuff about that, but that's the other thing. Again, is Howie really our good guy, or is he the one who's ultimately, he's a victim.
I think in a lot of ways, though, you watch the movie and you kind of are on his side.
Yeah,
you're wanting him to find this girl, Rowan, and he's going through all this stuff, and at times it does feel like they're just mocking him. Like when he opens up her casket and there's a rabbit in there, and it's like, that is Rowan. I think she'd be very, very pleased with this, like.
It's weird that they're not entirely lying, though, like the way they say things. Like, well, she doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Because she's something else. But they are lying because she's alive.
Yeah, totally alive, and it was all a con job, really.
It's a game.
The entire town.
Having a game with them.
Yeah. Well, they had to, like, everything that they needed was him. He was a virgin, a man of authority, and a man of God. And a fool, because he got played as a fool, and then they even had the costume of a fool for him, which was great. It's so, there's so much to this story, that it's if you watch The Wicker Man on its surface, sure, it could be a boring movie, But like if you really dig deep and think about it and pay attention to what's going on in the with the character, especially him, you see him praying at his bed every night while in the next room you got a naked girl dancing around singing, trying to lure
Trying
him
to
over.
tempt him over to make
Yeah,
sure he is a virgin. That's when they know, oh, this
yeah,
guy is a virgin,
right.
because
It
he didn't go with her, and who
no,
wouldn't, so
and I swear there's more nudity in this movie than any other movie at that time. I mean, you got a circle of naked women dancing around. I like Christopher Lee's line. He's like something along the lines of, "Well, how else are you going to jump over fire in clothing?" Like
don't be ridiculous.
that makes total sense, right?
Yeah, gonna burn your knickers.
Yeah, and Christopher Lee's character, Lord Summerisle, is so like different from what we're used to with him, and I love this character, the way he is, and I don't know, it's such an interesting movie. I think. Seth, I wanted to ask you because you this is your first viewing, right? So, like, did you catch on and like pretty fast, or how that twist hit you?
It just hit me as it was unfolding. Like when he saw the girl, and he ran after her to go free her.
Mhm.
I kind of figured that he would probably die, but like I thought it was gonna. I thought it was pretty straightforward where they were gonna sacrifice the girl, and then when she led him back to, I was like, oh, that's really cool. That's really interesting. And
Did they
at
do a
this
good
point,
job?
yeah, well, at this point, Amber came out into the living room just as that twist was unfolding, and she just sat down and just watched the rest of the movie with me. And then after she said, "Fuck those guys as apples," but yeah, um, yeah, but like it just I was invested in the story of him trying to find the girl, and with the fact that they were knowingly lying to him, and then I just kind of took it all at like a face value, and then when there was that twist where he was he was led there the entire time, and everything like sort of makes sense too, especially with the whole theme of the conflicting religions, right? Like him
Mhm.
being a virgin. He said he had a fiance. Well, part of don't have premarital sex type of deal. So it kind of fit with that clash too. So yeah, and I really dig the twist. I think it's one of the great
they
twists.
they were smart because they, like I said, they knew the virgin, but also like he had to go there of his own free will, so they had to give him motivation to go there on his
Yep.
own free will. Yeah, so to come there and try to solve this case, otherwise he would have just left, or whatever. But the fact that he had to stay, which yeah, I mean they play around with him.
Constantly. So like when he
But then I
lands,
mean, then again, he did almost leave. I mean, they had to
yeah,
Yeah,
sabotage the plane.
he was going to come back. Yeah, because he was going
Right,
to
yeah,
leave to come back with the
but probably
authorities.
more cops. So
Yeah,
so when he lands at the beginning of the movie, they try like he requests a dinghy, and they're like nobody has like so
so
some
you
there's
can't.
parts of the movie where I think like I wonder like was it all part of the game to say no you can't come on, or was it somebody trying to stop him from doing because they knew what he's doing? Do you think that was a
well,
thing, or did
I think it was like a sort of um, just trying to be as convincing as possible, just trying
okay.
to just kind of put on this ruse where they're not going to help him, or
Yeah,
like
because they
just to
kept
kind
throwing roadblocks at him. Like he needed to see the records, and Ingrid Pitt wouldn't let him, and he needed
right.
to, yeah, and he had to threaten her to
Yeah, they
get
didn't want to make it too easy for him.
yeah, yeah,
They
interesting.
need, I guess, because usually it's like a timely thing too, right? They want to do it at a certain time, certain day. They want to wait till May Day, so they had to get him to stay there till May Day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just crazy how they were able to work everything out to get him to do whatever they needed, and it worked out for them in the end, obviously. Yeah, I wonder how they're crossword the next year.
bad.
Hopefully plentiful. Oh yeah, bad. Well, I mean, you know, there's so many weird practices in this movie.
That's what's really interesting is like they believe, like Christopher Lee believes, oh, we'll have plenty. Like it's going to grow. I have faith in that, and he has faith. His faith. So that's what's so interesting is they both know that they're right in their hearts and their faith, and that's what the interesting thing of the Howie thing is that in his mind, no, I have the one real God, the true God, and he's trying to tell them that they're not being rational, that they're not thinking rationally. You're all mad. You're all this. It's like, but you're also, you have your own beliefs that they probably see as crazy and weird and irrational, and because religious people don't see that way of their religion.
I mean, political people too.
Just saying. So what their beliefs are, they're justified or right in their head, and everyone else is crazy. And that's what you see. Like he's constantly talking about how crazy and irrational they are. But like, dude, like your shit's crazy too.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, I mean, that whole island is it's a cult. And I mean, you can argue, and I'm not trying to say anything to religion
touchy area.
Yeah, as a cult as well. I mean, Catholicism, Christianity, whatever. But like, it's such a small, tight knit community that they're all going to believe in this, generally the same thing.
It's also he says something to them about the church when he finds out the church is torn down and all that. He actually tells them, this is how it's been for centuries. This is a long legacy, all like Christianity is the songs like, but this was around before you. Like this is even older than Christianity, and you're acting like, well, it's like when people nowadays go, well, we can't do this because this is how it's always been, and really they're probably talking about like been 60 years from when they were kids. Like, no, that's not how it was before you were born. This is what you know from where you live and the time that you've lived. That this is how it's always been, but it's not how it always was. So. Just that stuck in your ways, and I don't see. There's no room for any acceptance of anyone else's perspective. Is really what's going on with him. He can't see from their perspective, and he's sitting there preaching to them, and they're like, "That's cool, but that's not how we don't say death. We don't think of it that way. We think the resurrection is weird. We like regeneration, or we so that's what's really interesting, because you can look at them like they do a horrible thing at the end, but cultures did that shit and never thought it was evil. Like they're painted as evil. But,
some of the songs really tell you what they believe. Like the guy with the boys and the man lay on the woman and the I don't know the whole song, but you know what I'm talking about. Right before. Very catchy song too.
Yeah.
But that's you got to listen to. I'd like to get the soundtrack.
I have the Willow song on my iTunes.
Yeah. Because the a lot of the songs, I mean, even in the pub or whatever it is, they're explaining a lot of what they believe in, this whole society, and it's really interesting because the music takes the place of exposition, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting, which is something I've noticed in. Because in a way you could say The Wicker Man is somewhat of a musical, but
it is. Yeah, it is.
But I wonder if that is a filmmaking technique from British filmmakers, because I've seen that in a lot of stuff from around that era where they're using music to explain things. Because you look at Tolkien, the creator of the Lord of the Rings. He has got so many songs in The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, they sing all the time.
They sing all the time, yeah. And so I'm watching that, thinking to myself, is that like an English thing? Do they sing all the time over there?
I know that. I think a lot of this religion was based around song. The pagan religion, like a lot.
Well, I mean, even our religion, or not our religion.
Oh yeah, we got hymns and we got
Christianity. Yeah. They sing all the damn time. I mean, they were singing at the beginning of the movie, unless that was different from your cut.
The innkeeper's daughter.
Yeah, man. So would you want to get in your scene, or because I mean,
we can get that out of the way, because it kind of plays into something we've already started to cover a bit.
Well, I didn't want to get it that scene because I was going to talk about one of the scenes I like early on is the girl who had a sore throat, and they put a frog in her throat so the frog will have the sore throat and
Take
croak,
your
not
croak
her.
away. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so bizarre, like, but it sounds like it makes sense at the same time, you
Yeah.
know?
It's like placebo.
Yeah,
Yeah, like telling a kid, "Hey, they took your." It's old fashioned, old way stuff, old thinking.
yeah, it's this movie is so weird in so many ways. But yeah, let's do it. Okay.
So I don't really have the traditional cut down scene thing. I was looking for something to talk about, and there's a scene that I really like. It's really a moment, really. It's the school scene, which I love the schoolhouse scene.
I do too.
He just walks past the Maypo song that we were just talking about.
Also, do the boys and girls have separate classes?
I
Because the
guess
boys are
so.
outside doing their little jaunt, you know.
Yeah, but then
And
they do run
then
into the school when they're
yeah,
talking. But there's
yeah,
no chairs for them, so I don't
right.
know if they're switching out or what. Um, but yeah, the boys are out there doing the Maypo uh, ceremony song thing, and the girls are in class. And Howie goes over and looks in the window, and they're talking about the Maypo and that being a phallic symbol.
Mm-hmm.
And she's talking about the penis and all this. And he comes over the door and hears this, and he calls her over to the door because he's upset by what he's hearing, and like, I'm going to report this. This is you're talking about this stuff to these kids. And she's like, oh well, this is how we are. This is like, there's nothing wrong with this talk. Of course, he's a repressed Christian who this stuff is like taboo to him to talk about sexuality and fertility, and when it's just part of our life and our nature is fertility and
Yeah.
babies and everything and growth and nature. I mean, they believe in nature. And so he goes over to the board after this. I don't have pictures for that. But
He
he
erases what
writes,
they have on there.
yeah, it's like, again, just take it up, like racing her shit off her board. Like, it writes Rowan Morrison and says, do y'all know her? And they say no. And he looks in the book and sees her name. And like, you're all fucking liars, And he sees the desk, goes, whose desk is that? And they don't want to
Yes,
answer.
yeah.
And he goes over and opens the lid, and there's a beetle tied to a string, tied to a nail, and it's going around and around. The little girl says, around and around the beetle goes in the same direction until it's pulled tight to the nail where it can't, move. And poor little thing goes, poor thing, why did you fucking do it, But this image is symbolic of him.
Yeah.
He's the beetle. He's going in circles in the same direction over and over and over. The only way he knows how to go. And he gets tied to the pole, which is the Wicker Man, like his destination. He's going to get tied to it, and that's where it's going to end for him.
Which is funny.
Yeah, it's a prediction of, or it's foreshadowing of the whole movie and his fate. He's the beetle going around tied to this maypole or his phallic tower thing.
It exactly goes back to this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's this really clever little detail of foreshadowing and storytelling that some people might just say, well, I don't know what that was all about.
Most people don't. I like the girl's reactions talking to him, though.
Yeah.
And you captured some good ones here. Like, look at it. It's like she knows right there that he is basically that beetle. I feel like she does,
Yeah, she knows that's him.
Yeah.
That's you. You don't know it yet, but that's you.
And she's got that shit-eating grin going.
Yeah, I could tell you, but it's more fun to watch you do your thing, which is go around and around till you're trapped. And then I threw out another thing just because it's the stuff like that I love, and it made me think of another movie, one of my favorite movies, 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, that involved the beetle. And in this movie, Frances McDormand she's in a office to buy the billboards because her daughter was raped and murdered and burned alive a year earlier. I believe it's about a year.
Yeah, something like
that. And the cops haven't figured it out yet. And she wants to put up billboards to like, I don't know, antagonize the cops. And so she's at this guy, Caleb Jones. I think, yeah, he's Landry Jones, is the guy who owns the sign shop, and he would rent it out to her. So she pays him, and she's very hard ass woman. Like
Hey, that poster behind her.
oh yeah, I noticed that when I was taking the pictures.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm like, that's interesting.
A hair, a festival, flowers, spring.
Mhm.
But her character, this is a great character scene because Frances McDormand is very crude. She's a hardened woman. She's a mourning mother, but she don't take no shit. Like, she's a very cold woman and very tough. And so you kind of think, well, this is who this woman is. She's a angry, maybe even mean human being. And she pays the money and she walks over to the windowsill and she looks down and she sees a beetle on its back. And she reaches down. You think she's going to smush it because of her personality that we've seen so far. And she actually gently puts her finger down and flips it over to let it get back on its legs and walk off. It's such a little detail, but it tells you that she's an empathetic, good person. She doesn't squash the bug. She saves it. She helps it.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just this little minor character detail about who she is. She's not the hard and heartless, angry woman. She's angry, but she's deep down a good soul who's just hurting from not knowing where her daughter or who did this to her daughter. This is a wonderful movie. If anyone hasn't seen that movie,
it is good.
I love it.
It did not play out the way I expected at all, especially with Woody Harrelson's character.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I was just checking. It's not. You'd have to rent it if you want to see it. $4 on Prime, $4 on Vudu.
She won the Oscar for her performance, as did Sam Rockwell, who won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor.
Rockwell's so good, and people just don't know it sometimes.
The guy's fucking amazing.
Yeah,
I love
he
him.
really
I've
is.
been a big fan of his for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And I love Woody Harrelson and everything he's ever done. I just love that guy. And it's got a great cast. You got who else? That guy, Caleb Landry Jones, is that his name? He's been in a lot of stuff. He's really great. You got John Hawkes. You got Samara Weaving.
Yeah, you're right. Caleb Landry Jones, yeah.
Samara Weaving's in it. Oh, God.
Peter Dinklage is in it.
Peter Dinklage, Woody Harrelson. Yeah. The woman that plays Sam Rockwell's mother is great. She was Napoleon's grandmother. Oh, I can't remember her name, but she's wonderful in the movie. The kid who played Warren Beatty in Empire Records.
He's in that?
Brandon Sexton. Yeah, he's the one that they think did it,
I didn't realize that was him.
Yeah, and there's somebody else I'm forgetting, but I adore that movie.
Catherine Newton's in it. And we know she plays what's she in?
Abby Cornish plays his wife.
Abby Cornish, yeah. Oh, she's in Paranormal Activity, and she's in the new Ant-Man movie. That's what it is.
And Supernatural.
She played the daughter, right? Yeah, she's the daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and but I mean, and Samara Weaving, she's so hot.
She's hilarious in this too.
Yeah.
Who made that movie?
Martin McDonagh, who is fantastic. He's a playwright turned filmmaker. He made Seven Psychopaths and In Bruges, which I think you just watched, right?
I just watched for the first time.
You just watched In Bruges. What do you think?
I could not stop laughing at the whole conversation about the cunt kids. Don't you talk about my cunt kids?
In Bruges is great, and he just did Banshees of Inisherin that was out last year, which was great. And actually, when I took my directing class, I read his play The Pillow Man, which hasn't been adapted. I hope it does. I don't know if you could make it a film. It's just really unique. But if you ever want to read something really amazing, and if you liked In Bruges, you liked all that, buy you a copy of The Pillow Man by Mark McDonough. It is one of the it's an amazing script. It's a play. I wish I'd seen it. Jeff Goldblum was in the play. I haven't seen the play. I've seen clips, but the play, it's like it's about this writer, not like a really great successful professional writer. He has another job, but he's pulled in. It's almost like this fake police state kind of setting, and these two cops arrest him, and bring him into an interrogation room. And most of the movie takes place, or the play takes place, in the interrogation room, where they're arresting him for these murders of these children. Because all these children have been killed, and he's written all these collective short stories of like dark fairy tales of children in peril or murdered and all that. And the murders have echoed what he wrote, and they're just these nasty little short stories that he's written. And I don't want to ruin it. It's just it's beautiful. It's funny. It's dark. It's I was just blown away by it. I don't know if it could be a movie.
He had my attention with Seven Psychopaths.
Yeah.
So like
I've seen that. That's I was just checking to see if that In Bruges movie is streaming, and it's not really.
Oh, it's fucking hilarious.
That's great.
I loved it.
You know, if it's got your guys' stamp of approval, I'd like to check it out.
It's one of Colin Farrell's best performances, in my opinion.
I see that Colin Farrell and
Brendan Gleeson. They got great chemistry. They got their Banshees was a reunion for them. The three of them working together again.
Got Ralph Fiennes also.
Oh, Ralph Fiennes is a gangster. Oh, he's great in it. Got a great ending. Yeah.
Well, the ending is, I won't say what it is, but like Colin Farrell's last words had me dying laughing as well.
Not to look forward.
They're
That's what he was
basically,
concerned about.
yeah, it's so good. Yeah. Martin's a hell of a writer, storyteller, and he's made what, three movies, all fantastic. Four movies, yeah. Abbey, Missouri was his third. Banshees is his fourth.
He's married to Phoebe Waller-Bridge, or he's with her. And she's supposed to be funny. I've only seen her in Indiana Jones, so
she's great. Well, check out Fleabag. I think it's on Hulu or something.
It's I think it's a Prime show.
Okay, maybe it's on Prime.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Fleabag's she's really good. Now she was also the voice of the robot in Solo. The one that Lando was with.
I have seen that, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, she was great in that. That's one of the best parts of Solo was that character.
And she was one of the writers on No Time to Die.
Really?
Yep.
Oh. Did you like that one? I don't remember.
Yeah, I thought it was good.
Okay, I couldn't remember. Okay. We've deviated. That's okay. Because talking about some good stuff. Because Three Billboards is a really good movie.
Yeah, when I just saw the Beatle thing, I loved it, and I immediately thought of Three Billboards. I was like, well, I gotta mention that. Yeah, I love that movie. I love that. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. So
yeah, I saw that after it hit. I rented it from Family Video when it was still around. I missed that, by the way. And it was one of those that was on my radar because is it based on anything?
I think it's loosely based on a true story.
Yeah. But the story itself is just astounding. So I definitely had to see it. Anyway, Seth, is there anything in particular that with the Wicker Man that you wanted to really kind of dig into, discuss? I'm sure Nate has a couple other notes as well.
No, because like I'm not as familiar with it because again, this is my first time watching. Like, I knew of this movie, and I especially knew of the remake because everyone and their mother goes crazy when Nicolas Cage does crazy stuff. So I know about. Yeah, so I know about that, but this was my first time watching. I'm sure if I watch it a few more times, I'll probably have more things to talk about. But like I said earlier, I did like the story. I like the setting. I liked the main conflict, and then the payoff. I thought was pretty wonderful. So I'm just leaving it up to you guys now.
I'm glad that you liked it.
Yeah.
It's a really good movie that I do think is one of the legendary. It's best of the '70s for sure.
It's always
Top
been
10
on
of
my
the
top
70s.
10 of the 70s.
Yeah, I had it on my list at number 10, and it probably belongs higher. But based on the other movies on my list, I'm like, I can't put it any lower on the list because it's
Other ones are a little closer to the.
yeah,
All right, yeah.
Halloween, Chainsaw, Exorcist, Dawn of the Dead. You know, it's like how do you beat those?
70s has so many heavy hitters. That's the thing.
It does.
We talked about it, I think, last week or week before, how the 70s saw some of the greatest filmmakers of all time directing horror.
Mhm.
And so when you've got, The Exorcist and Alien, it's just hard to, I love Wicker Man with the horror comedy.
Oh, really?
Oh,
I've never seen
bees.
that one. I would watch it just because I do love Nicolas Cage. That's it. I've never seen it though, and it's not streaming, and I probably could get a DVD copy cheap because I've heard it's just absolutely terrible. I don't know. Have you seen it, Nate?
I saw it. I don't remember it being as awful as its reputation. It wasn't good, but I don't remember it being like as atrocious. But I think if you like Nicolas Cage doing Nicolas Cage's thing, that's what takes away from the seriousness. Because, I love Edward Woodward in this.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's great. I used to watch the Equalizer when I was a kid because he was, if anybody watches the Denzel movies, he was the Equalizer in the 80s on TV. It came from that show. Yeah.
Oh,
Edward
wow.
Woodward was. And he's in, Hot Fuzz, which definitely pulls from Wicker Man.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was a priest in that one, if I remember right.
That's kind of funny.
He was a priest, or Freeman, Freeman from Raiders was. It's been a while. I can't remember.
No,
I don't think he's. I think Freeman's the priest in Hot Fuzz, but Woodward's in it. It's just been a while since I saw it. A few movies like Hot Fuzz was definitely inspired by Wicker Man a little bit. Hostel definitely was. I know that. I remember that Eli had loved Wicker Man, and he had seen the original Vanishing movie, which is amazing too, from 1988, and that was a huge influence on Hostel.
Eli Roth said he writes to the Wicker Man soundtrack.
Good.
Because I watched so you have to get that because there's a great documentary about the Wicker Man spoken about from other filmmakers, kind of like what you did with that Halloween one a few years ago. Remember? With all the independent guys. But these were, they're talking about the Wicker Man, and Eli Roth talked about, he was very insightful about the movie. And it's a really good doc to watch. I definitely would if you can get your hands on that Blu-ray copy.
I read Christopher Lee was on an interview, and he mentioned that Cinema Fantastique, the classic French film magazine, wrote a thing on the movie, I think in 75, 76. So I found that online and read it, and it was long and very in depth and very informative on this movie, and just a great read. Long, but a great read. And even if Christopher Lee's saying, if you want to know about the making of the movie, read this. So you have to watch that.
So Paul Freeman plays the Reverend Philip Shooter.
Yeah, he's the Reverend.
Yeah, and then I just saw his name. Sorry, I wanted to look it up because I haven't seen him in a long time. He's
one of the townsfolk.
Professor who represents the neighborhood watch.
Okay.
Yeah. I
just really like him, and I love his earnest performance in this. And when we get to that ending's amazing anyway. But that first reaction he has when he sees it, and he says, "Oh God, oh Jesus Christ!" It's so impactful. And then they show the Wicker Man, and as he's praying to God and he's calling out to God and help. And I remember the first time I saw it, his performance was giving me chills when he's screaming to God and when he's preaching as they're dancing, and he's like about to die.
Yeah, he's in there praying for his life, praying for his soul, and you look out and all the townsfolk are just holding hands and dancing in a line. It's like, oh my God, And you also can hear like other animals squealing and shit inside the Wicker Man.
Yeah.
And then it just that great shot after the fact when it starts to roll the credits when it's all orange and
I love that last shot because it's like the head on
Mhm.
flames and then it collapses and you see the sun setting. It's just a
Yes.
perfect, beautiful shot.
Yeah, and
It's one of my favorite final shots of a
one of
movie.
the best things about this, I don't know if you watched all the way through the credits, is it's a Summer Isle production, and it shows that their god, the sun god, like a close up face of the sun god, like the whole frame, and then the end of the movie after the credits, it just shows it again. It's almost like they made the movie in a way.
Well, the opening of it says we want to thank Lord Summerisle and his that like it's true, like it's a true story.
Yeah, which I thought was awesome. I love that. I was just looking at Edward Woodward's. Apparently, throughout his career, they made fun of his name. What do you call a man with a plank on his head? Edward Woodward. What do you call a man with 3 planks on his head? Edward Woodward. And what do you call a man with 4 planks on his head? Edward.
You know
Woodward.
who they wanted to play Howie originally? Did they say
No,
that in
who?
the documentary? Peter Cushing.
Oh my God! Oh,
he was too busy on something else. And he couldn't do it. But at the same time, I thought he would have been completely wrong for it, really, because
he's kind of old for that.
He's way too. He's like 20 years older than Edward Woodward. So it's like.
I mean, well, yeah. I mean,
are we going to buy that he's a virgin who's engaged?
Yeah. He would have been 60 at that time.
Yeah, like a cop who's 60 years old and engaged and a virgin still.
I should have got him in there somewhere though.
Yeah, he was too busy. But I think they want him. I think it was Christopher who wanted him in
it. He was in Nothing But the Night, The Creeping Flesh, and Now the Screaming Starts, and The Satanic Rites. He was in 4 movies in 1973. Jesus.
Before we jump off it, you got something? Good.
Because I almost forgot. I do have a fun fact. 1 year after this, Christopher Lee and Britt Eklund both appeared in The Man with the Golden Gun.
That's right.
They were both in a Bond film together.
Yeah. And of course, Ingrid Pitt is in a lot of the Hamlet movies with Lee, or opposite Carmilla, I think, the vampire queen or whatever she is.
Something about Nicolas Cage movie.
Yeah, I want to see it. I should. I wonder how much it is on Amazon.
Don't buy it. Don't buy it.
Don't buy it.
Don't buy it. Go buy V instead. We talk about that finale. They shot this in like November in Scotland, so it was fucking freezing. It's supposed to be spring, so they even put like ice cubes in people's mouths so their breath wouldn't show and things like that. But there's a few stories about that last part. Now Edward is barefoot and in that lightweight smock thing, basically up there in that Wicker Man, freezing his ass off, but dealing with it. And they said that the goat that was above him was so spooked and scared about being in there that it pissed all over him.
Oh my God!
Down on him. But another cool story was talking about Ingrid Pitt. Between takes, they would offer the 3 actresses a coat to keep warm. So there would be guys coming out there to give them their coats. And Britt and the other woman, I can't remember her name, who played the school teacher, took their coats. But Ingrid said no. She goes, if the extras, if the extra women that were the townsfolk, if they didn't get a coat, she wasn't taking a coat.
That's cool.
I said that's a very a good example of those 3 actresses and who they were and what they were like.
I was just saying, she had been around for a while at that point. She was almost, I think, 40 by that point. Yeah. Ingrid Pitt. So, damn, still look real good too.
What's the name of? Why am I forgetting her name? Eklund, is that her name?
Britt Eklund. Yeah.
Britt Eklund. Really was not happy with this movie for a long time. First of all, she's dubbed.
Mm-hmm. But her
voice
and the regular, yeah.
And that's not her backside. She wouldn't do nudity below the waist, so they have a double. And apparently, I think a lot of people are disputing on who it is, but most people who worked on the film said the double was the woman who's weeping over the grave naked when he goes to the cemetery.
Yeah.
But Britt was really mad because she didn't know about the double. And she goes, that woman had a fat ass. My ass was nicer than that. I would have done it if I had known they were going to double me. So she was very disgruntled about the movie. And also she was dating Rod Stewart at the time. And apparently Rod tried to get the movie blocked when he found out she was naked in the movie.
It's not the only movie she was naked in there, Rod. Just saying.
Another fun fact is the guy that plays her father. It was only 4 years older than her, the innkeeper. And he's obviously homosexual. And he had at the time he was in an affair or in a relationship with David Bowie. And he was David Bowie and Tori Amos's mentor. He was a singer, choreographer, dancer.
Mr. the McGregor?
Yeah, Mr. McGregor.
Really?
Oh. Yeah.
But Diane Salento, I guess is her name.
Is that the teacher?
So, yeah, she was with Sean Connery at the time.
Oh.
That was her husband. How about that?
She's really good in it.
Some names behind it. Ingrid Pitt was not with. She was with George Pinche. Sorry. And Britt Eklund, with Rod Stewart. Oh man.
One thing that I heard someone bring up was that now the Birds kind of beat it there, but Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out the year after this, and Texas Chainsaw often gets credited for sort of not inventing, but really giving horror fans something different, which is daytime horror.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of the cool thing about Texas Chainsaw takes place in the daytime. Well, most of this movie takes place in the daytime, which was very different for horror films when this movie came out, which just kind of normalizes it. That's the thing that's what's scary about the movie is how normal and unaware everything is. Like the way that people are, they're so cheery. They're just like nothing's wrong. There's this mystery. A lot of people don't think it's a horror movie because of the way it plays out, but it's totally a horror movie, but it also because it's not trying to be scary. It doesn't play like a horror movie. There's no scares moments. There's no jump scares. The closest thing to a jump scare is like the Hand of Glory scene, where it starts off with a close up and pulls back and it shows the hand on his nightstand. But there's no scares. There's no horror moments in the movie.
No, nothing that would scream horrific or horror. But the movie is horrific.
But it's just this thing that.
Well,
where you go? Go ahead. Guess what it is.
Well, there is that one scene where he's going house to house searching, and he opens up that closet, and the
girl falls out. I love
it. Turns out to be a prank, but it was kind of set up like a horror movie in a way.
Yeah,
but they don't give you a stinger or anything, though, right? Like
no, yeah, totally.
It's got that kind of cheery montage music playing through the whole thing, and she falls out. I just love it because she's like there and she smiles. Pulls her hair back, she smiles, and she gets up. It's all one shot because then it goes up, and you see his reflection in the mirror to get his reaction in that one single shot.
The music in that scene reminds me of Werewolf Castle at the beginning of the movie when he's running frolicking. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah.
Throw that out there.
No, it's in Werewolf Castle.
Sorry. I just had to throw that at you.
You're welcome. I'm glad I made you watch it.
Yeah, I'm glad I saw that movie. It's definitely one of my top 100 werewolf movies.
And there's like all the little details of the investigation, like when he's eating and he's like complaining about the beans being this could not turquoise, they come from a can.
Yeah, they come from a can. Yeah,
and she's like, well, but like it's because they didn't have a harvest. Like just like there's no food. Like they couldn't grow anything because he's like, you're known for your food here.
You're known for your food.
Why are you giving me this shit? We don't have any apples. I think they were all exported.
Peaches and cream. He's like, from a can, no doubt.
And it's a movie where the hunter becomes the hunted, or has been the hunted
He's
the
been
whole
the hunter the whole
time.
time,
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff. I don't know if I have any other notes. They worked for free. Oh, the Wicker Man. The idea from what I read about the Wicker Man structure, why the Wicker Man, is it's to get the sacrificed between heaven and earth. So it's not on the earth, it's not in heaven, but it's between. Anything else? That's all I had with my notes.
Okay. Let's do some final thoughts and wrap this up in a tight bow. Before we do that, I want to remind anybody who watches Seth and I act like jackasses. We were talking about Halloween 1 and 2, not John Carpenter, Jesus. Rob Zombie's 2 movies on Wednesday. We're doing both in one episode, even though really, in my opinion, there are 4 different movies there. So 4 different cuts. I'm going to watch each cut of each movie. So that's Wednesday at 8. But let's do some final thoughts on the Wicker Man. Very powerful, really, it is a cult classic movie because not every horror fan either likes it or has seen it. But I think if we did another episode of Horror Musts, because I think we should at some point, this would be a must from the 70s if you've not seen it. Nate, what are some of your final thoughts on the Wicker Man?
I absolutely love it. I don't think there's anything like it. I think Midsummer, of course, carbon copy.
Yeah.
But it's a movie that I mean, come on, dude. It's Christopher Lee, who is a goddamn legend in this genre.
And he's so great in this movie.
And it's his favorite movie that he's made, and he did it for free. He didn't get paid for shit for this movie, and he still says this is the best movie I've ever been in. My best role.
I love his outfit, by the way. The black hair. I love his makeup and everything.
I just really, I love the slow burn element of it. I love the mystery. I love, again, Edward Woodward is so good in it. All the women are great in it, and beautiful.
Oh yeah.
And
no shortage of blonde women in this movie.
There was just nothing like this movie when it came out, and really wasn't again until Midsummer. And I think that's what it is. Like the movie. Sometimes a movie, it's kind of like Jaws. There will never be another fucking shark movie that will top Jaws.
No.
And so anytime anyone makes a shark movie, it's always going to be, well, it ain't no Jaws. Can't be Jaws. And it's true because Steven Spielberg produced the best fucking movie possible. And so when it comes to pagan rituals, I particularly really love fucking Midsummer, and I think it's a masterpiece itself.
As do I.
This is a masterpiece, but because it was something that defined a type of story that no one else attempted after. I mean, there were other pagan movies and there were other, I mean, Bergman, in many ways, Bergman kind of got there first. You got to see this. I almost talked about the Virgin Spring because it does deal with paganism versus Christianity.
Never seen that one.
It belongs in the folk stuff.
Virgin Spring?
Yeah, it's the movie Wes Craven ripped off to make Last House on the Left.
Oh,
yeah, Max von Sydow.
It's streaming for free.
It's on
Criterion.
It's on Criterion.
Okay.
The Virgin Spring is set in medieval Sweden, and this young girl, Max von Sydow's daughter, is raped and murdered by these men. And it's just Last House on the Left. Max von Sydow and his wife find out, and they invite them in, and they get revenge.
Is it better though?
Oh, yes, Bergman.
I don't like Last House on the Left.
I'm not a big Last House guy. But I mean, anything Ingmar Bergman made, he's one of the greatest filmmakers, and it's Max von Sydow. You know, that's where he got. Yeah, he started with Bergman. Did so many movies with him, and Virgin Spring is an amazing film. And I just thought, should I talk about that one? Because I guess some people don't know about it. I don't know, but I thought, well, it's kind of a classic film, and he's a classic filmmaker. I mean, most people, I think, if you say Bergman, they probably think of The Seventh Seal,
Mhm.
death and all that. But the Virgin Spring is definitely something everyone should check out, and especially if you're a Last House on the Left fan. If you haven't watched it, I don't know what you're waiting on.
I'm gonna post that on the Horror Syndicate's Facebook page, the Virgin Spring. See how
Okay.
many people have seen it. I bet you we'll get 7 comments. Just saying. But at least people will know about it.
Yeah. I don't know where I got onto Bergman, but oh well, just that no one has really. There really wasn't something like Wicker Man until Midsummer came along, and I think that's why it probably got to that kind of like because Friday 13th came out 2 years after Halloween, as well as like 1,000 other slasher ripoffs of Halloween. So, and Halloween wasn't the first movie to do what it did, but it kind of defined it. Just like I'm sure Jaws wasn't the first shark movie, but defined it. So when you get a movie like Wicker Man that defines the pagan sacrificial plot, then anything that comes after it is just pale by comparison, and just gets written off as a ripoff. Like I brought up briefly Battle Royale and how Hunger Games took a lot of shit, just called the Battle Royale remake or a ripoff, whereas Hunger Games has a lot in common with Battle Royale, but it's totally different storyline, and it's a lot different than Battle Royale. And the thing is, stuff in Battle Royale I'd seen before. Battle Royale was not 100% original. There was a movie called Deathlock or Wedlock that Rutger Hauer made back in the day, where they had the things around their neck and their head.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
They were married to like one other prisoner or whatever, and if one of them tried to escape, they would both die to keep them from trying to escape. And there were other things that Battle Royale reminded me of. But because it was so fucking good and so great and so definitive in some ways for a lot of people, and when Hunger Games came out, people just like, it's the Battle Royale ripoff, because people love to have that cool cult thing. Like you said, Wicker Man's a cult movie. So it's like anything that comes close to that cult thing that we love and worship, fuck it, it's a ripoff, and we're mad. But again, like Midsummer took 40 years or 45 years before anyone attempted to do something like that again. And it's his own thing. It's completely different, other than the finale of sacrifice and burning. That's it. But I think it's one of the best horror films of the 70s. One of the best films about religion in this genre. I'm sure it bores a lot of people. I'm sure a lot of people think it sucks. I
don't know how it can bore anybody, honestly.
It's just because it's just they're expecting the traditional jump scare. It's not even scary, man. It's not even scary.
Well, that's one of the things about the 70s. It's so transformative in horror. Like there's so many things from the late 60s into the 1970s that I guess could like walk that line between horror or not horror. I mean, even Rosemary's Baby, which is one of my favorite films, period, and one of my favorite horror films, it walks that line. And I know people don't think of it as a horror movie, but it is completely. Yeah. And then the same thing. I think The Wicker Man is. I'm quoting you, by the way, on this post.
Huh. Well, there's Eli Roth, what he got when he did Hostel, and pulled inspiration from this and all that. There's something immediately off-putting or frightening about being in another country, even though Howie's in England.
Mm-hmm.
It's his country. He even says it's they're under the government of his government. He has authority there. He takes that position. But that he is a stranger in a strange land, and those are always kind of creepy stories where you don't. These people, their way of life is completely different than his, and alarming and upsetting and aggravating. And being a Christian even amplifies it, that he just sees complete blasphemy constantly. heathenism. And but I like that idea of turning the perspective again, like take their side and look at him from the outside, or from the of how he's treating them and how he's talking to them, talking down to them, this authority figure who believes that he's above them in many ways, not only because of his position, but because of his faith and his beliefs, and how, again, he just thinks they're all shit. Like you talked about the frog singing. I love that reaction because he goes, "You're all obviously mad."
Yeah,
like he's the way he says it.
Well, I mean, even me when I saw that scene for the first time, I'm like, "What the fuck?" Like, so you can almost. I think that's why you can almost be sympathetic towards his character, because they're doing things that are against the norm anyway.
Because we're closer to his beliefs in our time than,
regardless of religion, we are closer to.
We understand what he's saying is weird, but I also think, like, well, let's teleport ourselves 500 years from now, and what are people going to think of Christianity when they look back at that and go, wow, people thought that way or did that? Even when you look at stuff in the Bible, you're like, really? Like, people did that shit? So, and like he said, he acts like Christianity has been around for so long when it hasn't. Like, this is how it's always been. This is what it is. And they're like, well, that shit didn't work for my grandfather, and we adopted the old ways, and that's how we've been here for the last 70 years or whatever it's been. And it's worked up until this year, and we've been happy, and everything's cool, and everyone gets to have sex in the fields.
Or in the cemetery. I think might have been some of that going on too.
And we all get to have some apple pie.
Warm apple pie.
I want some apple pie.
McDonald's got you covered.
Yeah, I can have that. It's vegan.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
No.
I'm not a vegan, guys. I like meat. But, yeah, I can't have dairy and eggs.
Oh, that sucks. The cheese thing. God, I love cheese. Seth, you have a problem with cheese too, don't you? Or is it something else?
Cheese.
You don't like Richard
I can
cheese,
still eat it, but
he can still eat it. He just, when he goes into the store, he just wants to throw it on the floor and
cheese. Oh,
fuck. Like always makes me think of a friend of mine, Dre Frazier, made me laugh because that scene in Nightmare on Elm Street 2 where Freddy's cornered Kim in her kitchen, Kim Myers, and he's standing there and he like knocks the china off the wall like that. He once did a meme where it's like, fuck these plates.
Even in The Shining, Jack Nicholson, he runs and take all that silverware or whatever it is. Yeah. Fuck these plates. Fuck
every time I see that scene, I think about it. Fuck these plates.
I want to watch that movie. I haven't watched it in a while. Seth, final thoughts on your first viewing of The Wicker Man. And let me ask you this. Do you foresee you seeing it or watching it more? Or is it going to be like a once in a blue moon type of thing?
It's pretty early to tell. I don't know if this is going to be a movie where I'm going to be thinking about over the next couple of days. I do like it, and I have to say, I really think the 70s was probably one of the best decades of horror, in my opinion. I really love 70s horror.
From a filmmaking and standpoint, or filmmaking and storytelling standpoint, I 100% agree with that.
Totally, especially from a storytelling standpoint. Just like they weren't bound by cliches or a certain structure. Like 70s horror movies, they had room to just have their own identity, and like you mentioned, Rosemary's Baby is great, and just a lot of other great stuff from the 70s. But this is a cult classic film about a cult, which is ironic. And I really enjoyed it, and I probably will watch it again at some point. I just don't know how soon I will, but I was thinking too. As much as we joke about the whole Midsummer thing, I think it would make a great double feature with that. So maybe that may be something I might try in the future. But I highly enjoyed this one, and it's unfortunate it took so long for me to watch it, even though I've owned it for a little while now. But
yeah,
I have no interest in seeing the 06 film.
Yeah.
I am. I'm not gonna buy it, but I got to figure out a way to watch it, and I don't want to pay for it at all. So if anybody has a copy, just slip it my way.
One other thing is that we talked about time. Like we have to look at when this movie came out and how, like Rosemary's Baby. I think we talked about that on the episode where that moment when they say God is dead, like when they say that, like I was like, I can't imagine what it was like in 1968 to see that and hear that.
I always wondered what the actor himself felt about doing that part.
Yeah, yeah. But thinking about how the United States was at that time, and also thinking about in 1973, not much different, and what they were seeing when they were watching this movie. And seeing a Christian being burned alive at the end of a movie. This is a movie where the main character dies at the end. That's an alarming thing anyway, because usually we don't see that. We don't see movies get released like that, and they're cheerfully killing a Christian. And alive.
Yeah.
And that was a bold thing.
One other thing I noticed.
Go ahead, Seth.
Oh, go ahead, man. I got that delay, so I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead. You're probably on the same topic that I am. I was going to throw something else out.
Well, just to say, I mean, it's not too far after, the Hays Code went away. So, like, filmmakers were a lot more free to, like, and really with 70s horror especially, it really shows like just how they were just really free to just take big swings, take chances, and do stuff unconventionally. And I think that's what I really love about 70s horror.
And I think that's why filmmakers today have a hard time matching the 70s, because people talk about the 70s as this romantic time of the greatest decade of film, which I agree with, I think. I mean, the 60s has some great stuff too, but the 70s, and I think it's because you had so many talented filmmakers who were allowed to do their thing. There was a time of the auteur. The studios trusted the artists. They didn't try to get involved. It was like, well, we've got this kid Scorsese, let him do his thing. We got this De Palma guy and Friedkin guy and all this. Let them do their thing. I mean, they were still interference, but they got to tell their stories. And as you said, the shackles were off. They were able to do Rosemary's Baby and Midnight Cowboy and all that type of shit, Deliverance, where people were seeing things they were not allowed to ever see. Now, if you go back and see like pre-code movies in the 20s and the 30s, you'd be shocked at some of the stuff they did then. You're like, wow. I mean, almost every movie in the 20s, the main actress in the movie was a fucking prostitute. It was always about prostitution and selling her body to fucking survive. There's so many movies about that. And you're like, holy shit. But yeah, the 70s, like these filmmakers were able to explore those things that no one was able to explore before because of the code. And they got there and they were able to just, it's like that line in Pump Up the Volume where Christian Slater says all the great themes have been used up, turned into theme parks. Like it's true. Like we're like people talk about how derivative we are now with our films. It's like, what the fuck are we like? We got to reinvent the wheel to come up with something new.
Yeah.
Like we really do, because they all got there before us. Craven and Carpenter and Romero and all that. They were there and they dried the well up, man. And by the 80s. So all we can do is try to take what they done and tell it our way, like Midsummer. That's all we can do. We can't get to the pagan thing first. It's already been done. We can't get to the exorcism thing first. It's already been done and already been done great. We can't do the shark thing because it's already been done great. We can't do the Halloween movie. There have been other Halloween movies, but the first thing people think about is Halloween.
Still blows my mind that was the first movie ever called Halloween.
Yeah.
You know?
You can't do an alien like type of movie like Alien without Alien being the thing. So they're just they just kind of got the corner on the market kind of thing. The other thing I was going to throw out for was that Cinema Fantastique, that magazine called this the Citizen Kane of horror movies.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot of praise.
Yeah.
I can't speak on that. I've seen Citizen Kane before, but I had to watch it in high school, so it was more one of those begrudgingly viewing movies, you know.
I don't agree with it because Citizen Kane. The reason Citizen Kane gets the praise that it gets is because of how innovative Orson Welles was.
Yeah,
the things he did in it were game changers in the way we make movies, and Wicker Man didn't do that for film. It did. Or Citizen Kane changed the way movies were made. And,
well, yeah, and I don't think Wicker Man did that. And also, Wicker Man wasn't widely accepted when it came out, or even still. Yeah, that's why it's got such a cult status, I think, because not everybody loves it. It did something different with the story, but like it.
I think if you were to say what's the horror movie that's Citizen Kane of horror movies, I would think it would be Psycho.
Okay, yeah.
I think Psycho changed everything for horror.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, because at that time we were deep in atomic monsters and reworkings of classic monsters, Dracula and Frankenstein. And Psycho was something completely different. Although you could go a step further, maybe with Night of the Living Dead, because that also was. I mean, the '60s. We talk about how great the '70s were. The '60s were also very transformative as far as a decade goes. It's just those two decades in general,
Yeah, we talked about on our 60s. I think we did the 60s. Yeah, the Psycho, Night of the Living Dead, and Rosemary's Baby. Yeah.
Well, like it was like Psycho, especially though, because like Ray mentioned, like it was, we were getting away from the gothic monsters and the atomic age, and it was more of a more realistic, like exactly. It was like an everyday person type of deal. So I think
anywhere in America,
yeah, we've all been to hotels.
Yeah, I totally agree that Psycho is definitely, I think, the Citizen Kane of horror.
Yeah, I think I can agree with that. Next week, I just want to mention, Nate, I'm not sure what's going on with your schedule. Are you going to be on next week?
Yeah.
Because we're supposed to start our Burton month, so Beetlejuice. We're going to have some fun next week.
Could I request Ed Wood to start?
You want to do Ed Wood?
I'd like to do Ed Wood because I may miss Ed Wood.
It's September 17th is the date for Ed Wood.
Yeah, if I get that play, I won't be there.
Okay.
That. And Ed Wood's my favorite Tim Burton movie.
Not mine.
It's my favorite.
It's Batman Returns. So, I love Ed Wood. Don't get me wrong, but I love Batman Returns.
Yeah.
Seth, can you make Ed Wood? Have you seen it? I don't know I don't even know if it's streaming. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I can. I own it on DVD, and I've seen it a few times, and I've also seen Plan 9 from Outer Space. So
I've never seen that, actually, but Ed Wood's a fucking masterpiece of a movie.
Actually, me and Amber started watching it probably a month ago, and we had to stop, and we never finished it, but I do want to get back to it, so
we should do both. We should do Ed Wood and Plan 9.
Oh, Plan 9. Oh, that would give me a chance to watch it.
Yeah.
Let me see if how available. Oh, it's on. Yes, let's do that.
Plan 9's got to be everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah, let's do that because I've never seen that. It's on Tubi. It's on Amazon, Plex, Freevee, Pluto. Yeah, I want to watch that. I definitely want to watch it. So let's plan on next week. We'll do Ed Wood. The following week, it was supposed to be Edward Scissorhands, and then we were going to do Sleepy Hollow as well. if you end up getting that part, which of course we'll be very happy for you. We're probably gonna take a break from Discourse. I think, or Seth and I will do something completely different because I don't want you to have to miss some of the episodes I have lined up. And I would really hope you get this part, man. I think that'd be awesome. But yeah, we'll do Ed Wood next week and Plan 9 from Outer Space. I'll finally get to see that. Have you guys seen that one both?
What?
Plan 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm gonna watch it after I watch Ed Wood though, because Ed Wood's one of those movies I saw in the mid '90s, just on HBO or something like that one day, and it was just like a pleasure to watch it. You ever finish a movie like, damn, that was a good movie? Just like when you're like 15 years old, like, damn, that was a good movie.
I saw Ed Wood opening. I saw it opening day.
Did you really?
And I was the only one in the theater.
Oh my god! Well, first of all, I had no idea it was Tim Burton for a long time.
Yeah, it was gone the next day or gone the next week. Yeah.
Jeez, I saw it and I'm like, this is awesome. I just love the movie. You've got Bill Murray, Johnny Depp. You've got Martin Landau playing and Bela Lugosi. Perfection, in my opinion. He's awesome. He's the standout in the movie, in my opinion. There's a lot of great actors in it. Bill Murray's so strange.
Martin Landau beat Samuel Jackson for the Oscar, Pulp Fiction.
From this?
Yeah, it was it was between Samuel Jackson as Jules and Martin Landau as Bela, and Martin Landau won.
Talk about two different performances, but two awesome, excellent performances.
Yeah, 94 is a hell of a year, man. That's one of my favorite years of film. And you got Pulp Fiction, Ed Wood, The Crow,
you want to
Natural Born Killers.
This was the year that I really started getting into movies.
Mine
and
too,
I'll tell you why. 1994, I remember it distinctly because August 12th, 1994, Major League Baseball went on strike, and that is all I watched. When it went on strike, I was like, what am I going to do now? I watched movies. I just started watching every movie that came on TV. I watched it. I started watching more and more stuff that year, and that's when I really started to fall in love with movies in general. Yeah. And Ed Wood was one of the movies I saw later that year on TV.
It was my freshman year in college, and that's, I think that freshman year in college is really important for a lot of people because you start to kind of expand your horizons.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just exploring everything because I in high school I was a big hip hop guy.
Yeah,
that's all I listened to was hip hop music. And then in '94 was really kind of an explosion of alternative rock. So like Weezer's Blue Album came out, and I think
Dookie,
Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, I think, came out that year. Yeah. And the Beastie Boys, Ill Communication came out that year. So, or 93, 94. So it was just the music I was listening to. And then my friend at work told me about Reservoir Dogs and Dazed and Confused, and Clerks came out that year. So it was just this year of films that I went, I could maybe do that. I think that's really what it was. When you see the Linklater movies and the Kevin Smith movies and the Tarantino movies, the Robert Rodriguez movies, they were all kind of busting there at that time. And the alternative filmmaking is really what it was with the alternative music. And it was just a great time to be entering school, college. And that was the year I wanted. First, I loved movies my whole life, but it wasn't until '94 where I thought, I'd like to maybe direct a movie. And I think I wrote my first screenplay in 1994. Yeah.
Hey, that's a year we should do for our yearly things. 94. We should tackle that one after 81, maybe. I know we talked about doing 80s stuff, but why not 94? I was 14. Seth was 11. You were 18, I think.
Yeah.
Be a good one to do sometime. Oh man, do you remember? What movie was it that really got you inspired?
Well, I'll say that The Crow came out right when I graduated high school, because I graduated in May of '94, and I saw The Crow with my dad and my buddy Chris, and I was drawing comics. I'd been doing comics for about 5 years at that point, and I basically did the superhero thing. But after seeing The Crow, I went, "Oh, you can do something else," because I knew of the comic, but I'd never read the comic at that time.
James LeBar is an interesting guy, by the way. I've met him.
Oh yeah, I was I was a neighbor with him at a show once. Like me and
Oh,
him
really?
together.
Yeah, he's a very interesting guy.
I hung out with him all weekend. It was pretty cool. It was funny because at the end I was like, I hate to be a nerd, right? But I really would like to get a picture with you. And he's like, no, I don't think so. And he goes, I'm just joking. He took a picture.
I was gonna say that's awesome.
And then I gave him the comic book because I created a book called The Malevolent after seeing The Crow.
Yeah.
And it was very inspired by Crow and Sin City because I thought, I can do crime stories, that kind of thing. And so I gave him my graphic novel at the show to look at. And he looked at it and he was like, it's cool. And then he like, you got better. You got better. But yeah, but the movie that made me want to make films was Reservoir Dogs. I saw Reservoir Dogs that year.
I had a feeling it was going to be a Tarantino movie.
Over that summer, I saw Reservoir Dogs, and it just changed the way I looked at film.
That was the same year I watched that movie, yeah. And
then, my freshman year, me and Jason and Bruce went and saw Clerks at Vogue, like when it was on its run in the theater. And I was like, wow, because I was living that life. I was working at a grocery store, and I recognized that. I was in college. I was about to be in my 20s, pretty much living the life that he was living. And then we went out to Steak and Shake after, it was one of those midnight movies. And we're at Steak and Shake when you can still go to Steak and Shake 24 hours. I don't know if they are now. But after COVID, nothing's 24 hours anymore.
It's not. No, the one here isn't anyway.
Yeah, and we were hanging out, and Bruce was like, it reminded me when we went and saw Dazed and Confused. I'm like, what's Dazed and Confused? So then I went and rented that, and I'm like, fell in love with that movie. One
of my favorites.
My freshman year in in college was just me coming home from school, doing my artwork from class, and I either put on Reservoir Dogs or Dazed and Confused as my background noise. I watched one of those two movies every day, all day. Like it's all. So yeah, it was Reservoir Dogs and Dazed and Confused were like in the game changers for me as far as I might want to do this actually. And I didn't start working to make films. I was still like on the comic book. That's what I wanted to do, comic books. But that was the first time I wrote a screenplay. It was after seeing Reservoir Dogs, and then Pulp Fiction came out that October. And I went and saw that like 6 fucking times. I was counting down the days because by then I was in love with dogs and fell back in love with True Romance. True Romance was the first thing I saw, but I didn't know who wrote it. I just really liked Tony Scott, and I loved that movie. And after I saw Dogs, I was like, holy shit, it's written by that guy. So I wonder. And so I was a big Tarantino nerd, and as most people
was
my age, I still am. But those early movies, it's Pulp Fiction and True Romance, Dogs, and Jackie Brown. I was just obsessed. And From Dusk Till Dawn, Natural Born Killers, it was a big part of my early 20s.
Mm-hmm. I can't wait to do an episode on 1994.
I got to represent it on that tattoo. I got the 4 ties, black ties, and the leaves from Reservoir Dogs to represent the 4 criminals in the story.
So we'll definitely do Ed Wood on the not the 17th. It'll be the 3rd. I can't believe it's already September. I'm excited about that. But good episode tonight. The Wicker Man, check it out if you can. I sent you guys the link for the Blu-ray. It's got some special features in it. It's also been remastered, so it looks a little bit cleaner. It's $15 on Amazon.
$15. So I put it in my cart. I just ordered
this.
I got that. Yeah, I just got that. I just got another movie called The Day the Earth Caught Fire, which
we just saw that on something because that's a great title. Somebody mentioned that.
I think I shared it with you guys. I just ordered this. It's made by the guy that made the Quatermass movies.
Yeah.
And somebody on Joe Dante's podcast talked about it, and Joe was like, "Oh my God, that's a great movie." And they said the other co-host Josh said that Quentin played it at the New Beverly as part of a double feature. And the double feature, I think they had people from the movie there, So after the first movie played, a lot of people went outside to meet and hang out with the stars or whatever of that first movie. But some people stayed in to watch the day the Earth caught fire, and everyone was just completely that watched it was like, holy shit, that was great. And he goes, we kind of felt bad because a lot of people didn't stay to watch it, but it was so good. And I went on YouTube to watch. There's a colorized version of it on YouTube, and I watched like the first 3-4 minutes of it, and I was like, I don't want to watch it this way. I want to watch it in high def, in black and white, because they talked about how good looking it is too. How great.
From
But it was
1961.
Yeah, the little bit I saw, I was like, yeah, I'm buying. So I just went on Amazon
Went
right
ahead
there
and
and
bought
bought it. I just went and bought it, like
Well,
just from their recommendation.
One of my
and just a
favorite
little bit
things
I saw.
about Google lately is when you type in a movie title and you go to it, it says "Why to watch." Powerful, bleak, and chilling are the three
Oh yeah.
keywords for it. I love bleak.
And then I just bought there's a Ray Harryhausen box set that I wanted to get.
The Wicker Man will be there. You can get it. You already have it.
I've seen
you'll be
it,
fine.
but I'll get to it eventually.
Definitely worth having in the collection, though.
I want to see it because I do love it. And I don't know why I haven't gotten to that cut because I do love this movie. It's one of my favorite movies.
I like this cut. I barely remember the original cut, but I really do like this cut quite a bit compared to the first one I saw. And that might be the other thing is the original cut I saw was different from this one that I have. And I do think there are certain little scenes here and there, especially that early scene where he meets Lord Summerisle, that adds to it. You know, why was it cut in the first place? So,
and if the day the Earth's caught fire is truly great, which I imagine it's going to be, maybe I'll make that my. You got to see this next week.
There you go. That'll work. That'll be good.
Yeah.
Because we got Ed Wood and Plan 9 from Outer Space next week. Oh wow! I'll have to put that on the Facebook page to see if anybody has seen that either. I'm sure a lot of people have a lot to say about it. I got to check in with the other movie I just put up the one comment so far.
Oh, what was it? Oh, Virgin Spring.
Yeah, good movie is what. That's the only comment in almost 30 minutes. But anyway, that's it for tonight. We got a lot to talk about next week, and Seth and I, Halloween 1 and 2, Rob Zombie's movies coming up. That's it. Nate, we'll see you next week, man. Have a good one.
Night.
Have a good one. Night.